In 1994, Joaquin Ramirez was 24 years old with a newly minted master's degree in forestry. Living in eastern Spain, he was fighting some of the most intense wildfires the country had ever seen.
1994 was the worst fire season ever in Spain, where I come from.
His shifts were brutal. He'd be on 24/7 for a week, then off for a week. Rinse and repeat. And to Joaquin, it felt like the worst firefights always happened during his on weeks. He just couldn't catch a break.
Every week that I was on shift, all the bad fires were happening.
But it's not that Joaquin had bad timing, it's just the job wasn't a good fit.
I mean, that's a really demanding job, facing really complex situations with a ton of skills that were not in my back pocket. Very soon, I realized that I was useless as a firefighter.
So he walked away, but he didn't go far. Joaquin took a job in forestry for a few years, but he kept thinking about the firefighting crews he had worked on and wondering if he could help fight fire in a different way.
I realized that all these incredible challenges in front of this incredible personnel, they had to face all of this with a very, very little intel. And that's what I saw that I could help. Support firefighters behind the computer with the science and with good data.
His goal was to modernize wildland firefighting because he knew from firsthand experience just how antiquated it was.
We were using American aerial photographs that were used in Spain to create their air bases from the Air Force in the 50s. That was the intel that we were using. And I was like, looking at that, I said, incredible. I mean, we should do something about this.
So in 1998, Joaquin founded Technosylva, a company that provides wildfire risk analysis tools for utilities. While building the company, he also earned his PhD at the Universidad de León, studying remote sensing and GIS. That's Geographic Information Systems, basically a way to analyze and map data. All of this was enhancing his foundation in forestry.
In forestry, we need many information to take decisions on the landscape, okay? Typically, we have to deal with hydrology, with soils, with weather, and all of that. We look at the environment in a very holistic way, understanding the interaction between the people and the nature surrounding them. And all of that was a great background.
To build tools that could help predict wildfires and understand their behavior, he knew he'd need to leverage satellite and GPS data, both of which were becoming more widely accessible, alongside advanced computing and data analytics tools. At Technosylva, Joaquin brought all of those elements together.
There was no one was taking too much attention into this. On the wildfire industry, people was investing on developing more tools to suppress fire.
Now, there were scientists focused on wildfires, but marrying that science with data analysis to build tools for firefighting crews was still largely an undeveloped space. Then, in 2007, at an international wildfire conference in Seville, Joaquin met Russ Johnson, who at the time was the director of public safety at GIS mapping software provider Esri. But before that, Russ had spent decades fighting wildfires with the U.S. Forest Service.
I said, you know what, Joaquin, you have to come to the U.S. And I said, no, what? No, you have to come to the U.S. You have to bring this science and these tools into supercomputing and just show it there, because we don't have what you are showing here.
So later that year, Joaquin headed to California to set up a U.S. arm of the company. Today, Technosylva has two main offices, one in Southern California and another in León, Spain. 3 years later, in 2010, Technosylva started working with San Diego Gas and Electric to improve its fire prediction tools in the wake of the massive 2007 witchfire.
They were looking for a system called the wildfire risk reduction model. So that way they could identify those hotspots where risk reduction was most valuable or more impactful.
Fast forward to today, and Technosylva works in 11 countries, providing utilities, regulators, and fire agencies with tools designed to predict, prevent, and mitigate wildfires. Joaquin says the scale and scope of wildland fires has changed dramatically over the past 25 years.
We have an environment that is more and more in collision with the human activities, with our communities. We're living a time of extremes. Now, extreme is becoming the new normal. Our landscapes can burn, our houses can burn, and it's an all-hands job. Many agencies, many communities are still being reactive, and we're trying to help our customers to be proactive.
This is With Great Power, a show about the people building the future grid today. I'm Brad Langley. Some people say utilities are slow to change, that they don't innovate fast enough. And while it might not always seem like the most cutting-edge industry, there are lots of really smart people working really hard to make the grid cleaner, more reliable, and customer-centric. Today, my guest is Joaquin Ramirez, founder and chief technology officer of Technosylva. We talk about how utilities are using the company's insights to better manage and communicate risk, and how firefighters are using digital tools on the front lines. And how, since that first project in San Diego, Technosylva has worked closely with the country's largest state wildfire agency, CAL FIRE, to improve the fire modeling system that is core to its products.
They have incident commanders and fire behavior analysts that have to face with these extreme fires, and we've supported more than 70,000 incidents and counting. They give us the best feedback that we can get to improve our models.
I asked Joaquin to give me some details on Technosylva's dynamic risk forecast model.
Basically, what we're trying to understand is any potential fire that could start in any part of the landscape for the next 5 days. What if a fire starts on any moment of those 5 days? What is going to be the potential impacts of the fire? That's what we care about. How big it's going to be, how many people can be impacted. So we don't know where the fire is going to start. There's areas that tell you, well, there's more probability because of the history that there are, people in this road or people in this community, there are more fires. To be honest, we don't care too much. We care about that for the mitigation. But for what is going to happen in the next 5 days, we just model everything and we create maps about the exposure of the power lines to potential fires, about the potential fires starting from the power lines, and to be honest, for any fire that is starting in the landscape. We do that by integrating all the data that is needed to understand this phenomena. We need to integrate extreme weather data about the vegetation, data about how dry is that vegetation, how extreme the fire season was, how productive the vegetation has been, so how tall the grass is. We need to understand how extreme the wind gusts are. I mean, there's areas in the landscape that could be, these 70 miles per hour winds in Wyoming, we don't care too much. But 70 miles per hour winds in Georgia maybe be very bad. So we identify those conditions in the context of how vulnerable is a territory. And then we run our models. Basically, in the Western US, we're running about 500 million simulation every day, and we're expanding to the east. So we're very closely to get to 1 billion simulations every day. So once the forecasters are ready, when a utility manager is ready, they have a report every morning that says, these circuits or this district, at this time of the day, you may have potential fire that are very, very impactful. There are many stakeholders. So we have to deliver the information that an engineer understands, but also that a C-level executive understands.
The 5-day advanced analysis that you guys do, I assume that plays a role in the public safety power shutoffs, which have become more prominent. They started in California, but you're seeing them more across the U.S. Maybe for those who aren't familiar with that concept, what are they and how should they be used in your mind?
Yeah, so this is obviously one of the most important and powerful tools that the utilities have to be able to prevent potential impacts to their customers, right? That is something that was created in California, was developed initially in SDG&E. We work from the very beginning with them to provide metrics to try to identify the conditions that are really extraordinary. I mean, and the utilities are in the business to provide energy, not to remove the energy from the customers. It really drives into a really extremely complex scenario. So it's absolutely critical that it has to be done in an extremely surgical way. And we're talking about reducing the number of hours of the size of a PSPS at a minimum. We need to understand very granularly how the event that utility, those circuits are facing, how extraordinary it is, and how concerned should be the engineers at the utility should be in advance to be ready to do it when it's needed and only when it's needed for the minimum time that is needed. Being able to communicate in advance, because at the end of the day, That's one of the reasons that we need those 5 days, right? We need to be able to be ready to communicate to the public in advance. Okay, maybe something that is extraordinary is going to happen. So you have to be ready. The utilities are doing an incredible job on communication, and we see really tremendous, great practices of how to communicate to the public in advance and how to be surgical. So our modeling tells them, okay, this specific circuit at this time of the day, considering 30 years of data, considering what we see right now with the weather stations, we feel that this event is over a 99.5 percentile of the historical data set. It is really extreme, right? So the utilities have that information and use that information to set up those preparedness readiness levels, pre-PSPS conditions. And we provide that every day in advance, 5 days, very granular, and they can set up the conditions. Okay, well, this is the threshold for me to be concerned in pre-alert mode, in full alert mode, or full PSPS mode.
Well, and I assume you guys aren't just handing over a report and saying, here you go. I mean, you're probably acting like advisors. And I would think in these extreme fire situations, we know people in the front lines are working more than overtime, putting their lives at risk. The people in utilities are losing a lot of sleep because they're in the command center. What's happening at Technosylva during these times? Like, do you guys have your own kind of command center where you're watching these things super closely? You're on the phone with the utility execs. I can imagine it's a very stressful and sleep-deprived time for yourselves. So I'm not trying to over-dramatize this, but what is that experience like for you guys in these extreme moments?
Yeah, we talk about the data, we talk about the input data, the models, the tools, and all of that. At the end of the day, the most important thing is the human factor. And that human factor, we need to help the utilities face this new environment. We need to be able to provide the education needed to try to understand. So this is not a black box. To give them the power to discriminate from the information that they're getting, because they are the ones that know the environment. They are the ones that know their grid. They are the ones that know their partners, even the partners at the customer level, at the agency level. What we try to then is empower them. But also, and we do that, we have a campus, we have to do training with them, we have a really in-depth intel system for them to go through this path. We facilitate workshops and collaboration with their utilities to build that trust so they can be champions internally. That's the first step. But then we have that scenario. And since 2019, I can tell you there's been not a quiet summer, and it's been busy fire season anywhere in the world the whole time. So for that, we put together an Intel team. In Technosylva, we created this kind of Intel services team that is compounded by probably one of the best fire behavior analysts in the nation. We've been lucky to be able to have on our team meteorologists, but advanced fire behavior analyst is a position on the incident command system that typically is someone that has been an incident commander, operations chief, has a deep understanding of the fire science. And we have people that was the incident commander of the Dixie Fire, people with more than 40 years of experience. So that subject matter expertise and that being close to them when you're facing your first PSPS or when you're facing a simultaneous event in different areas at the same time.
Do you think it's safe to say that all states now realize this is not just a California problem, or do you think there's some denial still within the industry that fires won't come here? Is it widely accepted that everybody needs to be acting and preventing for these kinds of situations?
At the beginning, as I mentioned, I think that the Lahaina fire just started, to make everybody aware. Also, who is aware is the insurance market and all the Standard & Poor's and all these people that is rating the companies, and they say, okay, well, you need to be ready for this because all these events could be catastrophic for you. And it's to be honest, it's an everywhere problem. I mean, right now we're working in the East. We started to work, I mentioned at the beginning, with wildfire agencies. We've been working we are the company that is providing the services to Florida State, Florida Forest Service, to Texas, to Virginia, to North Carolina. All those states in the South have been dealing with fire with in a little less impactful way as others. But it doesn't need to be 100,000 acres fire to be impactful. When a fire or when an event is bigger of your capabilities or your capabilities to respond, that is impactful enough to hit your organization. And we've seen that in New Jersey, we've seen in Minnesota, we've seen in South Carolina. Historically, we need to understand that the largest fire in the US was the Persico fire. It was in Michigan, 1871, killed 1,500 people.
Get out the crystal ball. Looking ahead, what technological innovations do you see reshaping wildfire intelligence in the next decade? And as somebody who has reshaped that as part of your company, Technosylva, you probably have good perspective on this. So if you were to look ahead, what's coming to continue this transformation in wildfire prevention?
So the first of all is what I'm excited that we're going to have more and more access to good data. At the end of the day, anything starts with good data to understand a phenomena. So we're part of a team that is creating a constellation of satellites. We're getting information from the people on the field with different kind of sensors. We're trying to capture information that is more integrated and hopefully, for example, piece of information that is very important is the information coming from the utilities to understand how the utility relies on the data to understand how the landscape and the conditions impact the grid, so outages, etc. So we need that kind of data, and as hopefully there's going to be better standards so we can capture that to understand the problem. On the other side, I think the innovations that are coming are in the direction of distilling all this complexity into actionable information. And for that, it's obvious that we are going to have quite big changes and big opportunities coming from AI, right? I'm meeting with the chief data scientist at Microsoft, Juan Lavista, AI for Good. We have crazy ideas of how we can get that technology in the hands to the people that really needs to understand that complexity, how to simplify the incredible amount of data. I've been talking about data models and all that, but when we talk with our utility partners, they need to deal also with the grid information, with the customer's information, with historical production. The amount of information that they need to manage is just incredible. And I think that we have a great opportunity with what AI is bringing us to refine the amount of information that is needed to have more informed decisions, right? So I think that's very exciting.
How about the fire crews themselves? How is their transition to using technology gone? Do they trust the models and the AI elements of what you're providing?
Yeah. You'll be amazed because people think that the guys on the field, they don't trust technology. They trust their Pulaski tool, their MacLeod, or their Axe, right? And that is not the reality. The reality is that we're living a time, and even more now, right? It's we spend probably not healthy amount of time in front of our devices. They are becoming more and more reliable in terms of providing information. For example, all the tools that we have work on disconnected environments, work on mobile devices. When a crew goes to an incident, we have a one-pager assessment of what they are facing that works without connectivity. They have connectivity in their office, and when they go to the field, they already can work. They have all the maps of the US locally, and they can plan their activities. The adoption is very quick, but they don't adopt technology. What they want is tools. They don't want shiny objects. No. You have to do your job so they can have tools that they can rely on. And that is common everywhere. The apps that we build are, very, very focused for the guys on the field. If it works for them, it will work for anyone else because they need things that go with 2 clicks, give relevant information, and that's it, right?
All right, last question for you. If you listen to the show, you know it's coming. We call the show With Great Power, which is a nod to the energy industry. It's also a famous Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. So, Joaquin, what superpower do you bring to the energy transition?
I think that my great responsibility is probably try to turn uncertainty into readiness, right? When I see a map of our results, I don't see lines on the map or a red to green. What I see is schools, it's hospitals, it's crews, it's families in the path of a fire. And that perspective really drives everything that we're doing. So with great power comes this great responsibility. And for me, well, that means making sure that technology just doesn't predict the risk, but helps people to reduce it.
Excellent. Well, Joaquin, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's an incredibly important topic, and I really do appreciate your time.
Thank you, Brad.
Joaquin Ramirez is the founder and CTO of Technosylva. With Great Power is produced by Gridx in partnership with Latitude Studios. Delivering on our clean energy future is complex. Gridx exists to simplify the journey. Gridx is the enterprise rate platform that modern utilities rely on to usher in our clean energy future. We design and implement emerging rate structures, and we increase consumer investment in clean energy, all while managing the complex billing needs of a distributed grid. Our production team includes Aaron Hardick and Mary Catherine O'Connor. Ann Bailey is our senior editor. Stephen Lacey is our executive editor. Sean Marquand composed the original theme song and mixed the show. The Gridx production team includes Jenny Barber, Samantha McCabe, and me, Brad Langley. If this show is providing value for you, and we really hope it is, we'd love it if you could help us spread the word. You can rate or review us at Apple and Spotify, or you can share a link with a friend, colleague, or the energy nerd in your life. Thanks for listening. As always, I'm Brad Langley.